If you've been experiencing tingling in your hands and feet, unexplained weakness, or that afternoon energy crash that leaves you barely able to function, what I'm about to share could change everything. After 23 years working with patients struggling with blood sugar issues, I've seen how something as simple as choosing the right snack can mean the difference between struggling through your day and thriving well into your golden years. I'm Dr. Emily Hartwell, an endocrinologist who has dedicated my career to helping people understand how their bodies process sugar and energy. What I've learned from working with thousands of patients is that the solution isn't about deprivation or complicated meal plans. It's about making smart, delicious choices that actually support your health. Before we dive in, if you haven't subscribed yet, I recommend hitting that button and turning on notifications so you never miss another health tip made especially for you. If you enjoy this video, send me your video suggestions and questions in the comments. I read every single one, and it helps me create more content to help people just like you. Let me tell you about Mrs. Margaret Chen, a 72-year-old retired librarian from San Francisco. Margaret came to my office last spring, and I'll never forget the fear in her eyes when she described how she'd wake up in the middle of the night with her feet burning and tingling so intensely she couldn't get back to sleep. During the day, she'd experience waves of weakness that made her afraid to go on her beloved morning walks around Golden Gate Park. Her daughter had started driving her everywhere because Margaret didn't trust herself behind the wheel anymore. When we checked her blood sugar patterns, we discovered wild fluctuations throughout the day. Her fasting levels were elevated, but worse, she'd crash in the afternoons after eating what she thought were healthy snacks. The crackers and pretzels she'd relied on for years were creating a roller coaster that was damaging her nerves and blood vessels. Margaret broke down in my office, telling me she felt like she was losing her independence one symptom at a time. What Margaret didn't know, and what most people don't realize, is that those tingling sensations and weakness aren't just uncomfortable symptoms. They're warning signs that your blood vessels and nerves are under stress from blood sugar spikes. Every time your glucose levels surge and crash, you're creating microscopic damage that accumulates over time. But here's the hopeful part that I want you to really hear. You have more control over this than you think. The first snack I want to talk about is something that surprised Margaret when I suggested it: raw almonds paired with a small apple. Now, I know what you might be thinking. Almonds are high in calories, aren't they? But here's what's fascinating about how our bodies work. When you eat about 15 to 20 almonds alongside a small apple, something remarkable happens. The healthy fats and protein in the almonds slow down the absorption of the natural sugars in the apple. Instead of getting that rapid spike that leads to a crash, you get a gentle, sustained release of energy. Let me tell you about Mr. Robert Sullivan, a 68-year-old retired construction foreman from Chicago. Robert had spent his entire career doing physical labor, and he prided himself on his strength. When he started experiencing weakness in his legs and that pins and needles sensation in his hands, he felt like his body was betraying him. His wife noticed he'd become irritable in the afternoons, snapping at their grandchildren during visits, which wasn't like him at all. Robert's go-to afternoon snack had been a granola bar, which he assumed was healthy because the package said it was made with whole grains. But when we looked at the label together, he was shocked to see it contained as much sugar as a candy bar. Within 2 weeks of switching to the almond and apple combination, Robert noticed his afternoon energy stabilizing. Within a month, the tingling in his hands had decreased noticeably. His wife told me later that getting her patient, good-natured husband back was like a miracle. The second snack that works beautifully is Greek yogurt with a handful of berries and a sprinkle of chia seeds. Now, this combination is special because it hits 3 important targets at once. The protein in Greek yogurt provides sustained energy without spiking blood sugar. The berries, particularly blueberries and strawberries, contain compounds called anthocyanins that actually help improve insulin sensitivity. That means your body becomes better at using the insulin it produces. The chia seeds add fiber and omega-3 fatty acids that further slow digestion and provide anti-inflammatory benefits. I think about Mrs. Patricia Morales, a 75-year-old former teacher from Miami, who came to me with severe neuropathy in her feet. Patricia told me she'd stopped going to her weekly dance classes, something she'd loved for decades, because the burning and tingling made it too painful to move. She'd also gained weight because her previous snacking habits involved sweetened yogurt cups that seemed healthy, but were loaded with added sugars. Patricia was skeptical when I suggested plain Greek yogurt. She wrinkled her nose and said it would taste too sour. But I challenged her to try it for just 1 week with fresh berries. 3 months later, Patricia returned for a follow-up, and she was wearing her dance shoes. She told me, with tears streaming down her face, that she'd been able to return to her classes. The combination of better blood sugar control and the anti-inflammatory properties of the berries had reduced her neuropathy symptoms significantly. She'd also lost 12 pounds without even trying. If you're still watching and finding this information helpful, comment a heart below to show me you're with me. These stories are real, and they could be your story too. The third snack might seem unusual at first, but trust me on this one. Celery sticks with natural almond butter. I know celery doesn't sound exciting, but hear me out. Celery is extremely low in calories and carbohydrates, which means it won't spike your blood sugar at all. But eating it plain isn't satisfying, and you need to feel satisfied or you'll reach for something else an hour later. That's where the almond butter comes in. 2 tablespoons of natural almond butter, the kind with no added sugars or oils, provides healthy fats and protein that keep you full. Mr. Thomas Washington, a 69-year-old retired postal worker from Atlanta, used to snack on chips and cookies while watching his evening news programs. Thomas had developed such severe tingling in his feet that he'd started using a cane, even though his doctors couldn't find any structural problems with his legs. His balance had become so poor that his children were worried he'd fall. Thomas was a proud man who'd walked miles every day delivering mail for 30 years, and needing a cane at his age felt like defeat. When we discovered his evening blood sugar spikes were contributing to his neuropathy, I suggested he swap his chips for celery and almond butter. Thomas admitted to me that he felt silly eating celery like he was on a diet, but he was desperate enough to try anything. Within 6 weeks, Thomas's wife called me, excited to report that he'd left his cane at home when they went grocery shopping. The combination of eliminating the evening blood sugar spikes and the anti-inflammatory properties of the almonds had improved his nerve function enough that his balance was returning. The fourth snack is hard-boiled eggs. Now, this is as simple as it gets, but don't underestimate the power of simplicity. Eggs are nature's perfect protein package. They contain all 9 essential amino acids your body needs, along with vitamins and minerals that support nerve health, including B vitamins that are crucial for nerve repair and function. A hard-boiled egg has virtually no carbohydrates, which means 0 impact on your blood sugar. Mrs. Dorothy Chen, an 80-year-old retired seamstress from Boston, came to my office barely able to hold her sewing needles because of the numbness and tingling in her fingers. Dorothy had always been meticulous about her health, or so she thought. She avoided red meat and fried foods, focusing on what she called light snacks like rice cakes and fruit juice. She couldn't understand why her blood sugar kept climbing and why she felt weak and shaky by mid-morning every day. When I explained that her rice cakes were essentially pure starch that converted to sugar almost instantly, and her fruit juice was concentrated sugar without the fiber that whole fruit provides, she was stunned. Dorothy started keeping hard-boiled eggs in her refrigerator, eating 1 or 2 as her mid-morning snack. She paired them with some cherry tomatoes for a bit of freshness. 3 months later, Dorothy showed me a beautiful quilt she'd just completed. She hadn't been able to work on detailed projects for over a year because of the numbness in her hands, but the improvement in her blood sugar control had reduced her neuropathy enough that she could pursue her passion again. But if you think that's impressive, wait until you hear about the 5th snack. Avocado slices with a pinch of sea salt and a squeeze of lemon. Avocados are truly remarkable for blood sugar control. They're rich in monounsaturated fats, the same healthy fats found in olive oil that have been shown to improve insulin sensitivity. They're also packed with fiber, about 7 grams in half an avocado, which slows the digestion of any carbohydrates you eat with your next meal. Mr. James Peterson, a 73-year-old retired engineer from Seattle, was struggling with what he called the afternoon wall. Every day around 3 o'clock, James would become so weak and foggy-headed that he'd have to lie down for an hour. His wife was concerned because James had always been sharp and energetic, but now he was sleeping away his afternoons. James had been eating low-fat snacks because his previous doctor had told him to avoid all fats. He'd munch on pretzels or graham crackers, thinking he was making healthy choices. When I explained that removing fat from his diet was actually making his blood sugar harder to control, he was confused. We discussed how fat slows digestion and provides sustained energy without affecting blood sugar levels. James was hesitant about avocados because they seemed indulgent, but he agreed to try. Within 2 weeks, the afternoon wall disappeared. James told me he felt like he'd gotten years of his life back. He'd started taking on consulting projects again and had the energy to help his son renovate his house on weekends. The 6th snack is cottage cheese with cucumber slices and everything bagel seasoning. Cottage cheese is an excellent source of casein protein, which digests slowly and provides a steady release of amino acids into your bloodstream for hours. This slow release helps maintain stable blood sugar levels and keeps you feeling satisfied. The cucumbers add crunch and freshness without any significant carbohydrates, and the everything bagel seasoning makes it taste indulgent without adding sugar. Mrs. Helen Rodriguez, a 77-year-old retired nurse from Phoenix, should have known better, as she told me repeatedly during her first visit. Helen had spent her career taking care of others, but she'd neglected her own health. She'd developed such severe weakness that she could barely make it from her bedroom to her kitchen without resting. The tingling in her legs had progressed to numbness, which terrified her because she'd seen diabetic patients lose limbs during her nursing career. Helen had been snacking on crackers with low-fat cheese, thinking the low-fat label made it healthy. When we analyzed her typical day, I found she was eating very little protein and almost no healthy fats, while consuming far too many refined carbohydrates. The switch to full-fat cottage cheese with cucumbers gave her the protein and satisfaction she needed. Helen later told me that the hardest part was believing that eating real, full-fat foods could actually help her lose weight and improve her health. But 6 months later, Helen had lost 28 pounds. Her energy had returned, and the numbness in her feet had improved so much that she'd started volunteering at a children's hospital, reading stories to young patients. The 7th snack combines walnuts with a small piece of dark chocolate, at least 70% cocoa. Now, before you think I'm giving you permission to eat candy, let me explain the science here. Dark chocolate with high cocoa content has a much lower sugar content than milk chocolate, and it contains compounds called flavonoids that actually improve blood vessel function. The walnuts provide omega-3 fatty acids that reduce inflammation throughout your body, including in your blood vessels and nerves. Together, this combination satisfies that desire for something sweet while actually supporting your health. Mr. Victor Santos, a 66-year-old retired musician from New Orleans, was devastated when he could no longer play his guitar because of the tingling and numbness in his fingers. Victor had performed in jazz clubs for 40 years, and his guitar wasn't just an instrument, it was an extension of himself. Music was his identity. He'd been managing his blood sugar fairly well, or so he thought. But he had a habit of eating candy bars when he felt his energy dropping during practice sessions. The quick sugar rush would give him a temporary boost, followed by a crash that left him shaking and weak. Victor was resistant to giving up his chocolate. He told me frankly that if he couldn't play guitar and couldn't have chocolate, what was the point? I understood his frustration. That's when I introduced him to the walnut and dark chocolate combination. Victor was skeptical that such a small amount of chocolate would satisfy him, but he agreed to try. To his surprise, the rich, intense flavor of real dark chocolate was so satisfying that he didn't need much. The healthy fats from the walnuts kept him full and his blood sugar stable. Within 3 months, Victor had enough feeling back in his fingers to start playing again. He performed at his grandson's wedding last year, and he sent me a recording. I cried listening to it, knowing how close he'd come to losing something so precious to him. The eighth and final snack is cherry tomatoes with mozzarella pearls and fresh basil, drizzled with a tiny bit of olive oil. This is like a deconstructed caprese salad, and it's absolutely delicious. Tomatoes are low in carbohydrates and high in lycopene, an antioxidant that protects blood vessels. The mozzarella provides protein and calcium, while the olive oil adds healthy monounsaturated fats that improve insulin sensitivity. The fresh basil isn't just for flavor, it contains compounds that may help lower blood sugar levels. Mrs. Barbara Lee, an 83-year-old retired school principal from San Diego, came to me with her daughter, who was terrified that her mother was developing dementia. Barbara had become confused and disoriented several times, once even getting lost in her own neighborhood where she'd lived for 50 years. The daughter was researching memory care facilities, preparing for the worst. But when we tested Barbara's blood sugar, we found extreme fluctuations. Her levels were dropping dangerously low, causing confusion and weakness, then spiking high after she'd panic and eat something sweet. Barbara had been living on crackers, toast, and juice, all foods that cause rapid blood sugar changes. She rarely ate protein or healthy fats because she was worried about her cholesterol. When I explained that her brain needed stable blood sugar to function properly, and that the foods she was avoiding were actually what she needed, both Barbara and her daughter were relieved and hopeful. The tomato, mozzarella, and basil snack became Barbara's favorite afternoon treat. She loved how fresh and light it tasted. Within 2 months, the episodes of confusion stopped completely. Barbara's daughter called me crying, thanking me for giving her mother back. Barbara is now 85, still living independently, and volunteers at her local library 3 days a week. I want you to understand something crucial: the tingling, the numbness, the weakness you might be experiencing. These aren't just annoying symptoms you have to live with. They're your body sending you urgent messages that something needs to change. But the beautiful thing is that your body has an incredible capacity to heal when you give it what it needs. Every single patient I've told you about today experienced real, measurable improvements by making simple changes to their snacking habits. Not one of them had to follow complicated meal plans or give up everything they loved. They just made smarter choices. The key principles are straightforward. First, avoid snacks that are primarily carbohydrates, especially refined carbohydrates like crackers, pretzels, chips, and cookies. These cause rapid blood sugar spikes, followed by crashes that damage your nerves and blood vessels over time. Second, include protein, healthy fats, or both in every snack. These nutrients slow digestion and provide sustained energy without spiking blood sugar. Third, add fiber whenever possible, either from vegetables, berries, or seeds. Fiber slows sugar absorption and feeds the beneficial bacteria in your gut, which actually influences blood sugar control. Fourth, choose whole, real foods over processed snacks whenever you can. Your body knows how to process real food. It struggles with the chemical combinations in ultra-processed products. If you're experiencing tingling, numbness, or weakness, please don't ignore these symptoms. They're warning signs that deserve attention. Start by talking to your healthcare provider about checking your blood sugar levels, not just your fasting glucose, but also your hemoglobin A1C, which shows your average blood sugar over 3 months. If you're already managing blood sugar issues, these snack strategies can work alongside your current treatment plan. Always coordinate dietary changes with your medical team, especially if you're taking medications that lower blood sugar, because eating better may mean your medication needs adjustment. I want to leave you with this thought. Every food choice you make is either moving you toward health or away from it. The power is completely in your hands. You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to completely transform your diet overnight. But if you can replace just 1 or 2 of your current snacks with the options I've shared today, you'll start moving in the right direction. Your nerves will thank you. Your blood vessels will thank you. And your future self, the one who wants to keep doing the activities you love for many years to come, will thank you. Please don't wait until symptoms become severe before taking action. Margaret, Robert, Patricia, Thomas, Dorothy, James, Helen, Victor, and Barbara all wished they'd made these changes sooner. But they're grateful they made them when they did, and you can start today. Remember, it's not about deprivation or suffering. It's about choosing foods that love you back, foods that nourish your body and support your health goals while still tasting good and satisfying you. If this information has been helpful, please share it with someone you care about who might be struggling with similar issues. We all know someone managing blood sugar challenges or experiencing unexplained tingling and weakness. This information could change their life the way it changed the lives of my patients. And please, talk to your doctor. Show them this list of snacks. Discuss your symptoms openly and honestly. The earlier you address blood sugar issues, the more damage you can prevent and the better your outcomes will be. Your health is worth fighting for. Your quality of life matters. And you absolutely have the power to influence your health trajectory through the daily choices you make. Start with one snack today. Just one. See how you feel. Notice your energy levels, your mood, your symptoms. Your body will tell you what's working. Trust it, listen to it, and give it what it needs to thrive.